As I said, the current environment has shown how difficult the role of an umpire is, and perhaps has increased the respect for the role and skills of the position. I honestly feel that the respect for the role of the umpire has improved, as people can now see how good we are and indeed how tough the job can be. Today's umpire has much more to do than just administer justice on decisions of dismissals. We have to police, and I don't like that term, but we have to police other vital areas of the modern game, such as player behaviour, ball tampering, over rates, logos and clothing, and the impact of ground and weather and light, with reduction of playing times involved. As I said up front, the spirit of cricket is centred around the theme of respect. As umpires, we need to respect the process from the governing body as to how the game is shaped and the role of technology. Remember, collective intelligence of the group is greater than the individual. Our technology system is not perfect. And as I said, one of the key roles of an umpire is to deliver justice when someone has infringed the agreed laws. One benefit of the current technology system is the reduction in player behaviour dissent charges and the improvement of behaviour accordingly on the field. In the majority of cases in the modern game, if an umpire has made an error, there's an ability to correct it. In an Ashes test, if there's an error off the first ball of the game, it can be corrected at the time, rather than have it on the umpire's conscience for the rest of the day, and have the players remind him constantly at square leg about it. If I make an error, it stays with me all game, all day, and I have to keep focused and performing in the middle. There is no dressing room to immediately take refuge in while another umpire comes out and takes over. There's no time off the field to regather thoughts and regroup. Players in the game deserve the highest standards of umpiring, and they deserve justice at all levels. We also have to apply our values and spirit of cricket at all levels. So let me illustrate this point to you with a personal story from a match that happened earlier on this year. Now, I don't normally umpire my children's cricket matches. In fact, when they're looking for an umpire, I normally take a few steps backwards and pretend not to hear the request. I suppose it's a combination of not wanting to either embarrass myself or have to deal with a conflict of interest if my son's involved in a decision, and also the fact that I'd just like to sit down and enjoy watching him play. Now, I took my eldest son Harry, who was 13 earlier on this year, one Saturday morning in January to play for his school in Bowral. And you guessed it, I was roped into umpiring. No one else was there who could do it, or more than likely wanted to do it. So I was thrown a very poor excuse for a counter, and yes, I am very particular about my equipment, so off I went. I was doing okay, didn't have too many 5-ball overs with the counter that I was given, but when I found my son Harry handing me his cap as he came on to bowl from my end, I thought, well, here we go. Now, Harry's not a bad bowler. He's a bit like a Terry Alderman. He's got a natural outswing about him, and within an over, Harry had a big appeal for an LBW. He's gone up with the keeper. I shook my head and said, not out. The fact that I could see all 3 stumps at the time made me pretty happy the decision was right. But what would I know? Well, Harry didn't agree. And he proceeded to give me and everyone the big T, as if to signal a request for a decision review. He then yelled out to his mother, sitting on the sideline, and said, "I never want Dad to umpire me again." I was more than happy to comply with this latter request. But I did take a serious objection to the former one of his dissent. How was I going to handle this form of player behaviour, I thought. Where was the respect for the umpire's decision? We ended up having our own internal code of conduct hearing that later that night at home. The penalty was handed out and there was no chance of sending it to further appeal. The story, though, does illustrate how our future generations and their values of our game are being shaped by what they see at the highest level on TV. This is unavoidable. I believe the highest form of the game needs to have the highest standards of respect, spirit of cricket, behaviour and integrity. Those at the highest level are setting the tone and standards for others to follow, be they players, umpires or administrators. We owe the future of our game that much. I do respect how the game is shaped and the role of technology. The technology genie has been let out of the bottle and it's not going back in. I'd simply advocate that we look at ways to be as pragmatic as possible so that we can get more correct decisions and deliver more justice. I do have an important message on this topic though, as it's often asked. What is your view on DRS? I'm not sure that's the right question. Perhaps we should be asking, are we using technology in the best way to serve the players, supporters, umpires and the values of our game? No matter what system of technology review, referral we implement in our game, it will not be perfect or 100%. The all-human solution is not 100%. Neither is the DRS, and neither will be an all-appeals review system. There are trade-offs and compromises with every system. It all depends on how the majority believe our game should be played, underpinned with the values we want to promote and preserve the spirit of cricket. One performance improvement tip I've learned from speaking with Gary Kirsten, who I respect enormously as a person and as a coach. We need to constantly ask ourselves every day, are we doing this the best way? Is there a better way? I'd advocate applying this question to how we use technology in our sport, as there is always room for improvement. And we should always self-assess and strive for excellence, not perfection. So to respect for the future. The playing control team, we call it the PCT, is the third team concept, and it's an important one. Not the most important, but equally so when we consider the players. Whenever the game deals with issues like security, corruption, technology, hosting standards, laws, playing conditions, scheduling, future tours programs, workloads, spirit of the game, we as umpires have an integral part to play as well. Umpires do not seek to be more important than the other two teams. We as the third team do seek to be treated as equally significant and respected for the role that we have to perform. If we expect our umpires and match officials to perform as professionals, then going forward we need to set them up as a professional support structure to support them and an environment that's appropriate. Hopefully this is where I can play a role now and serve the game better. Cricket Australia and the ICC have shown a lot of leadership in this area in particular, creating professional relationships between their businesses and the umpires. Australia were the first to offer part-time contracts back in 1998. In the case of the ICC, we entered into our first MOU in 2009. Both Malcolm Speed and Dave Richardson deserve a lot of credit for their pioneering and cooperation in this area. Being professional is not about how much money you're paid. It's more about creating the right environment of accountability, security, and clarity of who is responsible and for what, that allows one to focus on their core function. A contractual relationship is important for representative umpires and the top end of the game to flourish and to secure the best available. The top ICC elite panel umpires are travelling and working between 180 and 220 days a year, with their own domestic season to participate in. For the top 12 and perhaps the best 3 or 4 on the international panel, the workload is only manageable by having some financial and contractual security. For international umpires, the role is not just one of field game management, but there are other duties off-field such as umpire development with local boards, media and sponsor challenges and requests. The rise of domestic cricket leagues provides another time and work challenge for all of us, and it also creates a development opportunity for those domestic umpires. These local umpires now get to work with more international umpires, referees and broadcasters, and are able to practice their skills in what is essentially an international environment. Many people have asked why I retired from umpiring. I prefer to call it moving on to a different role. I've been umpiring for 22 years, probably long enough in some players' views, and nearly 14 of those at the international level. For me, it was time to take a new challenge. Apart from its time, there were two fundamental reasons, both personal and professional. I'd like to focus on the professional ones and remind you all of one quote from Sir Donald Bradman, and one of his key themes was, play the game for the game's sake, enjoy it, and leave the game in a better position than when you found it. Upon considering my own role in the game, I came to the conclusion that there were more to offer in coaching and development and support than an active umpiring alone. To date, most, if not all, of our effective training has been on the job. We are looking to develop more simulator-based training programs to support and prepare our umpires before they walk into a game situation. And I'll just divert from the speech here a little bit and give you a very practical example that only happened yesterday. South Africa were playing Sri Lanka in an ODI. Rod Tucker fell ill. It's a DRS game. 2 ICC umpires appointed. Fourth umpire was a new member to the international panel from Sri Lanka. He was given 15 minutes notice that he was going to go on field and do his first one-day international on the field because he wasn't able to do the third umpire's role because he had not received any umpire training as a third umpire or no DRS training at all. He'd only been appointed about a month ago. He wasn't ready. That's unfair on the individual and it's unfair on the game. But to his credit, he accepted the challenge and did a great job. That shows you what our guys are made of.